What do you think is the most dangerous thing about JDM, and what do you need to worry about?
I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I'm better everywhere. People were going to say, and they're going to ready to come out like, oh, he got hands. But I think they just underestimate my hands and my striking.
Obviously, you were already slated to fight in London next month.
Yeah, I was ready to go. I was meant to fight London, 4 weeks time pretty much. And 2 weeks ago, I found out that Shavkat had, I think he's injured, pulled out of the fight. So I think the UFC just wanted to book the champion. So I guess they just looked at the next best person. And I'm happy to take that opportunity.
But moving forward, Justin Gaethje is still fighting. I called him this morning, and my immediate question was, do you have any plans to not fight this week? And he goes, are you crazy? That's Justin Gaethje. He goes, are you crazy? Of course I'm fighting. I said, what's up, JG? What are you doing? He goes, I'm sleeping. It's 7:30 in the morning here. I thought it was 8:30. I thought he was in Central Time. I'm on the West Coast. I thought it was 8:30, but it was 7:30. He goes, of course I'm fighting.
What do you think is the most dangerous thing about JDM, and what do you need to worry about?
I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I'm better everywhere. People were going to say, and they're going to ready to come out like, oh, he got hands. But I think they just underestimate my hands and my striking, and I just went against the best striker in the UFC.
Jack Della Maddalena taking on Belal, remember the name, Mohammed, for the welterweight strap. This one came out of the blue. I didn't see this one happening. As I said, it is breaking news.
Yeah, I don't know if Justin Gaethje's probably not going to wait that long. They might have found him a replacement by now. But yeah, I'll be back good to go. International Fight Week. That's June, July, back in Las Vegas. So that's not too far away. I was expecting to take some pretty...
The news that is making headlines is about the injury of Dan Hooker. The New Zealand lightweight was scheduled to face Justin Gaethje in a highly anticipated 5-round clash on March 8th. However, Dan Hooker injured his hand during his training session, and now he will not compete at UFC 313. Dan Hooker has withdrawn from this fight, and MMA journalist Benny P first reported this news on his X account. He confirmed his injury and exit from the event. The UFC has not yet announced a replacement for Justin Gaethje. Benny P tweeted, "Unfortunate news, but per sources Dan Hooker is out of his fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 313 unknown if Justin Gaethje will get a replacement or if they will rebook it for a later card." Dan Hooker has also given detail about his injury in a recent interview with Sky Sports New Zealand. There was a clear difference between the conditions of both his hands, and he confirmed that his hand got fractured during the training session.
How are we? And be honest.
And be honest, one
One of these hands don't look like the other.
One of the paws is not doing so well.
Look, talk us through it. What has happened in training, Dan Hooker?
Yeah, oh man, it was just sparring last night. Just as I do, just letting some hooks go, yeah. Just throwing some bombs down range, and just caught one of the boys on the top of the dome with my knuckle, and yeah, and then I didn't think too much of it. But they sent me off to get a CT scan. Had a little CT scan, and they told me that my hand is fractured. So yeah.
Dan is unsure about the plans of UFC now for the Justin Gaethje opponent at UFC 313. Just 2 weeks are remaining for the fight card, and the officials haven't announced Dan Hooker's replacement yet. Dan Hooker said, "So yeah, I obviously still would fight, but with the medicals, they squeeze your hands, so we'll see how it all plays out." Hooker said, "We'll see if we can kick this fight down the road, or we'll just wait and see." Dan is definitely disappointed to miss this opportunity, but the Kiwi fighter has no regrets choosing this sport and pushing his limits. He doesn't want to limit himself, and he stay careful during his training sessions.
And this happens, you go into fight camp, you're putting your body on the line. It's not just you said off camera. You're not going to.
Well, yeah, people are like, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you just be a bit more careful? I wouldn't play this sport if I was a bit careful. You know what I mean? I'd be a cricket player. So it's part and parcel with the sport. Like, the training is hard. There's a lot of crashes and bangs, and
Hooker had won his last 3 octagon fights against the likes of Claudio Puelles, Jalen Turner, and Mateus Gamrot, so this was a huge setback for him to lose this opportunity to feature in the co-main event of UFC 313. Dan Hooker stated, "It's unfortunate that it was this close. Obviously gutted for all the fans that I know that were excited for this fight. That's probably the main thing, I think. The Lords of War were not happy, and they took it away from you." Dan Hooker also shared the expected date for his comeback. The lightweight fighter is confident that his injury is not very serious and that he will recover very soon. Dan believes he can make a comeback in the octagon in June or July.
yeah, I don't know if they're Justin Gaethje's probably not going to wait that long. They might have found him a replacement by now, but yeah, I'll be back good to go. International Fight Week, that's June, July, back in Las Vegas, so that's not too far away. You know, I was expecting to take some pretty hefty damage in in this fight and be recovering for quite a while. So yeah, by the time International Fight Week comes around, yeah, like it's just a small fracture on my hand, and we'll get it sorted ASAP and be back in there in no time.
Michael Bisping also reacts to the injury of Dan Hooker that has forced him out of UFC 313. The former UFC champion knows that training for a fight is not easy, and Hooker would be disappointed to suffer this huge setback.
Fighting in MMA is very hard. Training for a fight is even harder than the fight. And getting to the fight is often half of the battle. And that battle was lost by Dan Hooker. And I can't wait to see him back in there. Now, the reality is that UFC 313 has taken a bit of a hit.
Michael Bisping was excited to see Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje fight, and he knows that UFC 313 has got a big hit with this injury. Bisping said Dan Hooker was in great touch before this fight, and Justin Gaethje had to make a comeback against him. So this situation was making the UFC 313 fight card very interesting.
Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje, and certainly this version of Dan Hooker that is just looking phenomenal, the way that he beat Jalen Turner, the way that he went out there and beat Mateus Gamrot and showed that he's got well-rounded skills. This was a really competitive fight, and certainly when you bank in the fact that Gaethje was knocked out cold last time by Max Holloway, a featherweight. Not that there's any shame in that, by the way. Fight of the night, knockout of the night for Max Holloway. He walked away with an extra $600,000. Justin Gaethje is never ever in a boring fight, so that's what I mean. This was the icing on the cake. If you were on the fence about buying it, you were definitely going to buy it because of the co-main event combined with the main event, and of course, a stacked card from top to bottom as always.
Bisping further shared his thoughts about Justin Gaethje's future. According to Bisping, Justin has been searching for a win for a long time, and he needs that win to revive his career because Gaethje is still among the top 5 lightweights in the UFC.
He needs a new opponent. Justin Gaethje is still going to want to fight. He hasn't fought since UFC 300, coming up to close to a year, and he did the right thing. He took some time away from the sport. He got knocked out pretty badly, face plant KO. There's a lot of concussion there. You take some time away, you go through all the protocol, you get rid of the skeletons in the closet, you exercise your demons, and you come back and you take out somebody like Dan Hooker or somebody else, and you get the career right back on track. Because we've got to remember, Justin Gaethje is still the number 3 ranked lightweight on the planet. He's still very relevant in this division, but given his age, he hasn't got too many years left in this sport, and the man still wants to be a champion.
Bisping also reacted to the possible opponents of Justin Gaethje after Dan Hooker's injury. According to Bisping, Renato Moicano is the top contender to fight him. Moicano also faced Islam at UFC 311 after Arman's injury, and now he has once again got the opportunity to make a surprise entry.
So the question becomes, who does Justin Gaethje fight? Well, of course, a lot of people have put their hands up already. So first of all, Renato Moicano. I love Renato Money Moicano. He's hilarious. He's an amazing fighter. He put a beat down on Benoit Saint-Denis.
Renato Moicano is also interested in this fight, and he said that he is ready to prepare for this fight in 2 weeks. Renato Moicano tweeted, "2 weeks is good. I have enough time for 2 or 3 sparring sessions. I will be ready if they call." However, Michael Bisping thinks this is not going to happen. He said the UFC won't give a green signal to Moicano for this fight after his early defeat against Islam at UFC 311. Bisping likes the temperament of Moicano, but he knows the UFC will not agree to give him another opportunity in such a short span of time.
I don't think that's the matchup, because we saw last time out, Renato Moicano, he switched up from Beneil Dariush to the main event, which of course comes with a lot of pressure. And when you're taking on the pound for pound GOAT in Islam, it's never an easy fight. And he was probably going to lose according to everybody that you asked, other than him and his coaches. But it didn't go well. He got taken down and submitted with a DOS pretty quickly, okay? And because of that, I don't think he's going to be the guy that the UFC look at to say, hold on, who's missed a short notice? Who's missed to save the day? I love Renato Moicano, and I respect and admire his balls for willing to do that, but that isn't going to be the one.
The UFC legend mentioned another fighter that is ready to accept this fight, and it was none other than Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot has openly accepted to fight Justin Gaethje as Dan Hooker's replacement on this short notice. Bisping praised Gamrot for his skills, but he doesn't think that this matchup would excite the UFC fans.
Who else? Well, Mateusz Gamrot, he went up against Dan Hooker. He came out, put his hand up, said, my fight with Dan Hooker was very close, and he got lucky with the judges. Time to fix. So Mateusz Gamrot, of course, is ranked number 8 in the world. He's a very, very capable lightweight fighter. He's got great wrestling. He's got cardio for days. But I'm not sure if that will be my first pick. Yes, a great matchup. Is it a matchup that makes me lose my mind over? I don't know. Maybe that is the fight that happens. But when you look at it on paper, it's not the one where you go, ho, 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 I got to see this one. But sometimes beggars can't be choosers. And then, of course...
Meanwhile, there is another interesting matchup that was recently announced by Dana White for the main event of UFC 315.
UFC 315 on May 10th, live from the Bell Center in Montreal, Canada. The main event will be Belal Muhammad, his first title defense, against number 4 ranked Jack Della Maddalena. We tried multiple times to put together the Belal Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, but Rakhmonov is injured. So as soon as Rakhmonov's healthy again, we'll get him back in there, and obviously he'll probably be first in line to fight whoever wins.
So Belal Muhammad is all set to make his first title defense appearance against Della Maddalena in the UFC 315 main event. This fight will take place on the 10th of May at Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Della Maddalena, who is on a 17-fight winning streak and still unbeaten in the octagon, is known for his crisp boxing. However, the welterweight champion Belal Muhammad likes how he matches up against the Aussie wherever the fight goes. Belal believes he is a much better fighter than Maddalena in all aspects of the game. Belal explained what he's seen from Maddalena's recent fights that hint at a potential weakness.
So when I have a guy that's basic and Jack who's just boxing, right? He has really good hands, he has good power, but he breaks a lot of these guys down because he hasn't fought anybody like me. His biggest weakness is his experience. He's never been in a big fight like that. He hasn't had a pressure fight yet. He hasn't fought a pressure fighter yet. So for me, I think I'm going to go in there and I'm going to walk through him like I thought I was going to do to everybody else, and I've done everybody else.
Belal also thinks that Maddalena is a good fighter as well and possesses great skills. However, the welterweight champion feels that the lack of experience of Maddalena might cost him this fight. Della Maddalena has been undefeated in the UFC so far, but he has never competed in such a big fight before. Belal Muhammad added, so when I have a guy who's basic and Jack, who's just boxing, he has really good hands. He's got good power, but he breaks these guys down because he hasn't fought anybody like me. His biggest weakness is his experience. He's never been in a big fight like that. Muhammad expects his experience to play a big factor. According to Belal, Della hasn't competed in such a big fight before, and he hasn't been tested in pressure situations. Handling the pressure of a main event is not easy, and that's why Belal thinks he won't have any difficulty to emerge victorious at UFC 315. Belal Muhammad said, he hasn't had a pressure fight yet. He hasn't fought a pressure fighter yet. I think I'm gonna go in there, and I'm gonna walk through him like I thought I was gonna do to everybody else, and like I've done to everybody else. On the other hand, during a recent appearance on Sky Sports, Jack Della Maddalena spoke about his initial reaction to this fight against Belal and how it has changed his preparations. He has produced 4 consecutive first-round finishes when arriving in the UFC in 2022. The Aussie fighter was preparing for Leon Edwards' fight, but pulled from his UFC Fight Night 255 headliner against Leon Edwards after Shavkat Rakhmonov couldn't make the May 10th title fight due to injury. Dana White confirmed the injury of Rakhmonov and confirmed he will get a title shot after recovering from that.
I just went against the best striker in the UFC, and Leon Edwards, so-called. I train with the best striker in the UFC, Ignacio Bahamondes. I train with Yair Rodriguez. Both these guys, you've seen them spar, you guys seen them, they're a different level.
Maddalena had to change his preparations as he now faces a very different challenge in Belal Muhammad, who despite showing great improvements in his striking, is predominantly a wrestling-heavy competitor. However, Maddalena's morale is still high as he thinks facing grapplers like the champion is something that he's confident about. Della Maddalena said feeling good, obviously different sort of opponent or different strategy involved, but I've always prepared for fighting grapplers. Belal's someone I've always believed I could beat, so it's just about taking on the opportunity and doing my job. Della Maddalena isn't making the mistake of underestimating the welterweight champion. He knows that Belal is the champion for a reason, but he does believe that he will be able to keep the fight in his preferred range. Della Maddalena added, "He's definitely a hard man to beat, but I feel like I can outclass him on the feet, and then he will try to take me down, but I believe I can get back to my feet and get back to where I have the strong advantage." The UFC legend Michael Bisping is excited for this fight. He thinks Della Maddalena has to make a few changes in his preparations as he is now facing Belal Muhammad. Bisping acknowledges the skills of both fighters. He was also impressed with the current form of Belal Muhammad.
Fair play to Jack Della Maddalena because he's done the same thing. He was preparing for Leon Edwards, a kickboxer, a guy that's a sniper that's going to stand on the outside. Now he's going up against Belal, who will be all up in his face, a cardio machine going forward, simple as that, shooting double leg takedowns, throwing hands like Canelo. He doesn't throw hands like Canelo, but the man is on a roll, okay? Belal's doing tremendous things, and he's talking a lot of shit to a lot of people. He was going back and forth with Dricus du Plessis because he said that all the middleweights suck. And Dricus said, look, listen, this wouldn't be a fight, okay? All I gotta do is step on his head and that's it. It's over, okay?
Bisping thinks it is a big fight announcement, and both Della and Belal will put all their efforts into this fight to get the welterweight title. Bisping analyzed the skill sets of both fighters and spoke about their biggest strengths ahead of this fight.
This is big, big news. Belal Muhammad is going to be very excited for this one. He's going to look at what Gilbert Burns was able to do and feel that he can replicate it because he's younger, he hasn't got as many miles on the clock and all that type of stuff. Of course, Belal is a cardio machine, but if he keeps it on the feet, it's going to be a problem. Jack's got real power. He's got beautiful understanding of range and timing and rhythm. He can see shots. He rips to the body beautifully, and he's a taller guy. So there's a lot of advantages on the feet. But Belal's a whirlwind. Belal is an absolute tornado.
Moreover, the welterweight champion Belal Muhammad has made fun of Leon Edwards. Belal defeated Edwards to become the champ, and he took a dig at him that after stealing his belt, Belal has now stolen his opponent as well, because Leon Edwards was initially expected to face Della Maddalena at UFC London in March. Belal Muhammad tweeted, "Dang, I stole Leon's belt and his opponent." Meanwhile, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who was the expected contender to fight Belal Muhammad for the belt at UFC 315, has shared his reaction to this fight announcement. Rakhmonov revealed that he got injured, and that's why he was unable to participate in this fight, and that's why the UFC had to replace him with Della Maddalena for this fight card. Shavkat Rakhmonov thanked UFC for offering this opportunity and wrote on his social media, "Big thanks to the UFC for offering me the shot at the belt first. Unfortunately, due to injury, I won't be ready for May. I'll be facing the winner later this year." Well, this is all we have from today's video, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. We would also love to hear from you guys about your thoughts on the upcoming fight cards. Share your predictions in the comments section, and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more interesting content related to MMA. Don't forget to press the bell icon to get instant notification about our latest videos.